Hi, Ms. Harris. We're at the book signing. American Negra. Natasha Alford has come today. You brought a group of students um, to learn about the book, learn about being an author. Why is this so important?
Well, actually meeting the people who are doing the work
Yes.
that they're aspiring to do, um, it's pretty profound. They get to ask their real questions of the professionals.
That's right.
And it's pretty important that Miss Alford took the time to speak to our students and show them that this is doable, that
That's right.
that they can achieve when they put their mind to it.
There, you've heard it. This is English person extraordinaire from our high school. Has inspired me to have a literacy council here in the city of Orange Township. So it's fitting that this book signing will happen on this day. When I spoke with the superintendent this morning to certify and confirm that we're going to have the literacy committee. You're going to be on it. So she wished for it, but now we're going to put her to work.
Absolutely.
I'm
I'm just
Mayor.
starting the research.
I'm Mayor Warren. I'm with Professor Harris. We're at the Orange Public Library, and it's book signing day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Orange Public Library. And today, a special feature of our library board was to bring in an author and let's ask her questions. The most important thing about today's events is that students who want to have some career or interest in journalism are here and a part of this program as well. I want to welcome them. You guys raise your hands. Moving young people forward, especially in things like journalism, is important. So thank you guys for coming on. Thank the public for coming as well. My council colleagues are here. In the way back is Councilwoman Adrian Wooten working. My far left is the council president, Libby Ross. And then, Council at Large, Weldon Montague. So you like, sir, like you just give us the ground rules, how we're gonna go, and then we're so, okay.
Thank you for having me, first of all, Mayor. Putting all this together, it is such a beautiful building. We were just admiring the woodwork, the marbles, it's a fantastic facility, and you guys took a lot of work on it. So I just think everybody, I hope you're using the space, and this is a fantastic space. I think what we'll do is after we hear from the mayor, we will have a small conversation here between me and Natasha, and then you guys will be able to ask some questions. And then after that, I think we will call it an afternoon. There are books available, so you'll be able to have a conversation about how you get a hold of one of these books. I think she signed some of them, so yes, that's a treat to be able to get one of those. So, Mr. Mayor, I'll turn it over to you. I'm Jamal Simmons. I'm excited to be here. I'm a neighbor. I don't live in Orange, but I live just nearby. I'm excited to be here. I worked in politics most of my career. I was most recently deputy assistant to the president and communications director for Vice President Kamala Harris at the White House. And I'm now a commentator on CNN. So,
Thank you, sir.
and I get to hang out with her. That's the best part.
Natasha S. Alford is award-winning journalist, host, and media executive. She's driven by the power of storytelling to inspire and change people's lives. Natasha serves as a vice president of digital content for the Griot and an anchor for the Griot TV. She is also a CNN political analyst, offering commentary on the news, politics, and movements of the moment. Most proudly for us, she and her family, which includes a 3-year-old, is a resident of the city of Orange Township.
All right, so Tasha Alford, thank you for writing this book.
Thank you for coming here and being here with all of the folks here in the community to hear from you directly about this. And I will tell you, um, you see a lot of books on the shelves. There is a lot of sweat and labor and love and family time and all sorts of sacrifice that goes into each one of these books. So if anybody is thinking about doing this on your own, it is something that is worth doing. It is also something that you are a hero when you finish. So thank you.
Thank you.
So could you tell us why you wrote this book and what you hope the folks here get out of it?
Absolutely. Well, first, I have to thank you all for being here. It is an honor that you would spend part of your day with me. It is an honor to have the mayor here, leaders of the city council, because I know that the work that you are doing is actually life-changing, right? You're serving the people, and there's nothing more important than that. In so many ways, I fell in love with Orange because it reminded me of my hometown. So I'm from Syracuse, New York, which is technically another Orange place because we have the Orange Men at Syracuse University. And I grew up in a working class family, African American father, Puerto Rican mother. So I come from two communities that often, grow up right next to each other. And historically, I can talk about why that happened. But I was a public school kid who went to Harvard University. And when I went to Harvard, it changed my entire life, but it also changed how people looked at me. A lot of people heard Harvard and they assumed they understood what my life was like, or where I came from before that. And so I wanted to unmask that and say, what does it really mean to find success in America? We talk about the American dream, but what does it take to really get there? And so part of American Negra, this story, is to show the ups and the downs. And also to show that just because I got to Harvard, it didn't mean that that was the happy ending. There was a lot of sort of struggle and challenges that came after that to find my voice, but also to become the person that I am today, to be on television, to work at CNN, to work at the GRIA. And so really I wrote this for the young people, which is why I'm looking at y'all smiling, because this is for you. You are the future. You are what's next. And I think we do you a disservice when we just talk about our resumes and we don't talk about what it took to get there. So that was part of the reason for this story and why I'm glad to be in such good company.
All right, so can you do one thing that we talked about this a little bit in the back, and I think other people have talked about it as well. Can you explain the title to us so everybody understands the title for those who have not read the book yet?
All right, so when you look at this title, you see two words. You see American and you see Negra. I know we got some lights going outside of the building. So again, important things happening outside of this building. I wrote this title for a reason. A lot of people, they hear the word negra or negro, they might think of Negro, right? We think of that old school term that was once used to describe Black people in America. But negra, when it's translated, it means Black woman. And so I wanted people to understand that wherever I went in the world, I was a Black woman. Whether I was in Puerto Rico and they were speaking Spanish to me, or the Dominican Republic, or in New York City, to be me, to be in brown skin, was to be a Black woman. So what I wanted was to show the duality. And how many of us know about W.E.B. Du Bois? Most people? Okay. W.E.B. Du Bois, African-American scholar, helped to find the Crisis magazine for the NAACP, one of the first Black people to get a PhD from Harvard. And he talks about the duality of being more than one thing. And so what I found was that growing up in the United States, when people would look at me, they would see me as a Black girl and only that, right? And so when I tried to assert that I come from two different cultures, a lot of times people wouldn't see the Latina in me. They wouldn't see that experience. And so what this book tries to do is to paint a portrait of what it's like to grow up Black and Latina in America. And so that is what the Negra part is, but also what the American is. Because to be an Afro-Latina right here in the United States is a very different experience than being an Afro-Latina, say, in the Dominican Republic or in Panama. So I'm trying to paint a portrait of an American experience that I think a lot of people can relate to.
So when you talk about the duality, you talk about the two-ness, I think is how people like to put it at one point. You talk about that. That didn't just exist for you when you entered the world, when you were outside. That was something that was happening in your very household, in your very family. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you navigated this duality inside your family?
Yes. So I don't know how many people in the audience can relate to this, but people ask me the question, what are you? Has anyone been through that? Right. They want to know, what are you? They might see your hair. They might see, certain facial features. They're trying to figure out what you are. And a lot of times people would ask me what I was. At home, my mother and father said, you are African American, you are Latina, you're both, and you should be proud to be both. But oftentimes when I encounter people in the world, they would say, well, can you speak Spanish? Do you know how to cook this or that? There were people who often questioned my identity. And so at a certain point, I started to just say, I'm Black. That's what I would just say. And I wouldn't explain more about my heritage because I didn't want people to sort of question me or make me perform my identity. And it would make my mother very upset because she felt like I was ignoring her or erasing her roots. And so part of what you will see in this story is me trying to find a way to, first I say, I'm just Black and I don't want to talk about my Hispanic roots, but eventually meeting other Black people from around the world and saying, oh, we have Black people from, Panama, we have Black people from Jamaica, we have Black people from Puerto Rico, and we are all Black no matter where we go. And we all sometimes have this experience of people questioning us. And so that's part of it.
Would it be too much to ask you to read a part of the book that maybe talks about that?
No, or do you want to hear some of the book? All right. Okay, so this part that I will read, this is me. This is me and my mother having a little argument. And it's on page 21. It's at the top of the page, and it's me and my mother having a little bit of an argument because I'm starting to say I'm just Black and I don't want to explain anymore. All right. Morenita, Morenita, men have named you, not Latina. Morenita, Negrita Chiquita de Estados Unidos, writes poet Tracy Morris. Morena is Spanish for Black girl, sometimes referring to medium brown-skinned women of any Black ethnicity. Mommy could not help me interrogate my morena status in society, my negritude, because she didn't fully understand her own. She hadn't learned much about slavery in Puerto Rico, or the Black Puerto Rican leaders like Marcos Cioro, who had revolted and fought for freedom on the island. She just knew that she and we had African blood in our DNA. She knew that she had been called negrita by her own mother, supposedly a term of endearment, but one that marked her as the most Black adjacent in her family despite her mixedness. It would be women like Aunt Sin and Mrs. Harper from the Saturday Academy who would model Black womanhood for me. We spoke the same language. And so it would be no surprise that around this time in life, as I turned 13, a primary ethno-racial identity started to form, a Black American one. I'm Black, I'd say defiantly, not interested in explaining myself to anyone anymore or having to defend my multi-ethnic background. You are not just Black, my mother would snap when she heard me refer to myself as such one day on a car ride. I'm the one who gave birth to you. You are Puerto Rican and you are African American. Normally demure, she was now worked up. Well, people don't see me that way, I retorted stubbornly, so I'm not trying to convince people about it. Our voices tangled and climbed over each other, leaving us both gasping for air during the argument. Voy a darte un puño. Don't get smart, Natasha. To me, saying I was Black was not about downplaying my Puerto Rican roots, but about rejecting a system that seemed to have rejected me by default. I didn't look like the Latinos people expected to see in America. It seemed like everyone had gotten a clear memo. And not only was it fairer skin that made you Latino in America, but the ability to speak Spanish. Back when I was in pre-K, my mother's friend had told her that I would struggle in school if she insisted on teaching me both Spanish and English. It was a wild claim with no scientific merit, but it was one that appealed directly to her greatest fears. Mommy struggled as a youth in school to keep up with the fast-moving English that my abuela didn't speak at home, and she walked around carrying a dictionary. She didn't want that struggle for me. So mommy left Spanish in my orbit, speaking it around me and to me often, but English was king. And that's just a small study.
In the book, like what you just read, you go through a lot of different scenarios and stories where you talk about interacting with your family. Some of these conversations are pretty frank about things that you weren't happy with or things that were struggling. How did your family react to you writing about some of those tough moments?
Well, whether you're African American or Latino, I think it's kind of common you don't share your family business. Has anyone else heard this? So it was hard. It was hard to tell them that I was going to write a story about our family, about our tensions. But what I told them was this could help other people. This could help other people to feel seen. And even what I read just now, the struggle of language, I think all of us, whether you speak Spanish or not, sometimes you're told that to be an American, you have to assimilate and you have to let go of certain things that are part of your culture to fit in. And what I have learned now on the other side of that is that who we are is beautiful, right? The differences between us, all of these things are what is supposed to make America truly great, the multiracial democracy that we are supposed to be. And so in many ways, I thought I had to change or to fit in when in fact, all parts of my culture were beautiful. And now I understand it.
You also talk about being, in the gifted and talented program growing up.
Mhm.
You talk about, obviously you talk about the struggle between your Latina roots and your African American roots. Did you ever, feel like you just did not have a place? Like they were kind of an outsider in different worlds, or did you feel at home in one particular place in that one?
Well, one thing I talk about in the book is being a young Black gifted child, quote unquote, and the pressure that comes with that. Because you're not just allowed to be smart. You're told that you're representing for your whole community, right? You're fighting the stereotypes about young Black Latino kids, and you feel like you can't make any mistakes. And the message in this book is that you are a human being. Whether you get straight A's, whether you go to a certain college, whatever, you have to love yourself regardless of your performance. And I think what happens to a lot of us who do well in school, if you are a young Black child, you're going to public school, people make a big deal about you being successful, is that the pressure of that can start to wear away at your soul, can wear away at your confidence. It can make you want to not take risks. Because you say, if I fail, then what will people say? When in fact, success is about failure. It is about learning lessons from failure. It's about taking risks. And so this book is an attempt to show what it takes to truly find that confidence, what it takes to bounce back when you make mistakes, because that's part of the journey. And so to answer your question, Jamal, there were times where I felt I didn't fit because I had imposter syndrome. My work ethic had gotten me into certain places like Harvard or like Northwestern. But when I got there, I started to ask, do I really deserve to be here? And I think that is what we have to tell our young people is it's not just about getting into certain places, but also developing their sense of self-worth. So when they get there, they can truly sustain and succeed when they're there.
And so how did you find community when you were in these spaces, many of which are not always populated by lots of people with brown skin?
Well, we found each other. This book will also talk about what it's like to be Black and Latina at Harvard. And there's actually a lot of us there. I didn't know that when I applied. I thought I would be the only young Black girl there. There are a lot of us everywhere, right? And so when you find community with others, that is how you get through. You have to help each other. Sometimes we have this very individualistic mindset, and it kind of comes with, the American way, I think, where you think I have to work at it alone and I have to prove that I did it on my own, when it's people who pull together, who work in community, who share what they know with each other. Those are the people that get ahead faster. And so that is how community sort of saves me in this book.
So you were frank about your family and some of the problems you had. You also were frank about some of your own problems and moments that you feel like maybe you didn't quite execute the plan you started out.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that journey and the willingness to tell those stories in front of all the strangers?
Yes. So I laugh when writing this book, there were certain moments that were a little embarrassing where you go back and you say, why did I do that? Why did I say that? But this is what it means to be an author. If you're not honest with people, why would they read your book, right? If your whole life is perfect, what's the point of telling the story, right? So we benefit. This is why writers matter so much, because in telling the truth, they free the readers to also acknowledge their own truth. And you'll see there are moments of me being a stubborn teenager, a stubborn young girl, but also, there are moments where I have big dreams and my parents are not supportive of that. So there's a scene in the book where I get into Harvard and my parents don't react the way that you would expect. There's not like all this celebration and things like that. And I think because my parents sometimes didn't support the particular dreams I had, I thought, well, I just won't listen to them, right? I have to go my own way in order to get where I want to go. But the problem was that I would erase all of their advice. And there were some things I did need to listen to. There were some things they did know what they were talking about. So that is the sort of tug of war that happens with young people sometimes and our parents. And I think people will learn from reading it in the book.
I often say to young people when I talk to them, listen to your parents, but not too much.
There's like a balance, right? Yeah.
Because parents are, those of us who are older, and I consider myself in there, we become expert on how things happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And young people are really the experts on how things are going to happen in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And so at some point, we have to sort of trust their vision with what they see. They need to trust our vision, our experience a little bit, but their vision is important. You've had a lot of experiences. You talked about them a little bit from, working in network television, working in Black media, going to Harvard, one question. Did you have an experience that you expected to be meaningful, and then when you were there, realized maybe it wasn't what you hoped?
So, well, I'm laughing. I'm sure the panel can relate to this too, by the way. I'm sure you've had a moment in your career where you thought it was going to be one thing, it was something else. There's a chapter in here called Sellout, and it talks about when I go to work for a hedge fund, which if you don't know what that is, that's okay. I didn't know what it was when I first got to college, but it's a financial firm that makes their clients a lot of money. And I thought that I'd achieved the American dream, that this is what it was. You graduate from school, you make a lot of money, you take care of your family. And just about a few weeks into the job, I hated it. I knew it wasn't for me. I wasn't really inspired by the work. Even though it was interesting and I was learning in other ways, I was like, this is not for me. And I wanted to be honest about that because I want young people to not just chase what looks good on paper. Because when you get there, if it's not aligned with your actual passion, you won't be happy, right? And life is long. And it's hard to pretend for a really long time if you're not truly, truly invested in where you are. So that was a moment for me. You'll read about how I broke free from the golden handcuffs, so to speak. And I think that there's a lot to be taken from that.
And so that's the moment that you expected to be meaningful that wasn't meaningful the way you thought. And was there one that you didn't expect to be that significant at all? It turned out to be kind of a turning point within it.
Well, I think the flip side is when I went to go and become a teacher. Now, let me just ask the audience a question. Has anyone thought of being a teacher before? Anybody? Okay, a couple of people. Has anyone heard that you shouldn't be a teacher? How many have heard that you shouldn't become a teacher? I see some hands back there. Okay, there's the honesty. There it is. There it is. And you know why? That's because we tell people that teaching is the most important thing that you can do. But when teachers actually are in the classroom, what do they face, right? They're not paid enough for the work that they do. They're often encountering a broken sort of public education system. And so the young people, they graduate and they say, I don't want to be a teacher because it's going to be too hard. I'm not going to be paid enough, whatever things they've heard about that. And teaching ended up being the hardest, most rewarding thing I ever did in my life. It made me a leader. I made hundreds of decisions in a day. As a teacher I taught middle school English, so I had like 90 students. And of all the things, the fancy office job I did, even being on television with Jamal, teaching is still the hardest thing that I have ever done to this day. So if you want to be a leader, if you want to test your character, if you want to wake up every day and have to be the best version of yourself for young people, become a teacher. But unfortunately, well, thank you. Um, but the flip side of that is that right now our country is not living up to the challenge of making teaching appealing. And it's the most important thing that we can do if we want to see change in our country, because that is where it all starts, teaching our young people.
Is there anything else you want to read before we?
No, I think
Okay.
I'm happy to take questions.
Yeah, let's move to some,
Yes.
let's move to some questions.
Okay.
Anybody in the audience out there want to? Here we go, right here. Zoom in.
Nice to know you, and is this your first book, and how difficult was it? And you work with CNN, so you have some prestige behind you. But for people coming up wanting to write,
Mm-hmm.
you could maybe help us out.
Absolutely. So this is my first book. So I'm a new author, a debut author. And this was hard. I mean, even once you get a book deal, some people think getting a book deal is everything, but you still have to go out there and sell that book, right? And sometimes companies will give you a deal, but it's really up to you whether you succeed or whether you fail. So I think the message to writers is to know your story, to know what you want. It has to be about more than being an author, but it's about, how do I want to impact people with this story? What's a story that only I can tell, that nobody else can tell? And to write a little bit every day. I actually got my book deal right after I had my son, which is supposed to be the hardest time in a woman's life, right? Becoming a new mother, trying to figure that out. You don't really sleep much. And I thought, how am I going to actually pull this off? But little by little, I wrote every day. And so my son and my book are about the same age because it took me 3 years, about 3 years to write this book, and he's turning 3 tomorrow. So, just a little bit at a time and you can achieve a goal.
So get right here.
Oh, great. I was just going to say, we're about to
The young people, yeah.
You got one. Can you tell us your name and where you're from?
Yeah.
The days that Albert is more you plan on making more books like this?
Thank you so much for your question. I think I have some more books in me. I don't know if I would do memoir again because it's very personal and you're putting your life out there, right? And you have to be willing to take questions about your life. I knew I could write about my childhood up until a certain point. I may want to live a little bit more before I get personal again. But I do have things to say about this country, a lot of the political rhetoric that we're hearing right now. And so if I write another book, it'll probably be nonfiction and it'll be about American democracy.
We'll still have a topic to write about.
I know. All my 18-year-olds need to vote this fall.
And you gave us just some sense of whether or not journaling was important, and if it was, to some of the students the importance of journaling now, and if they're gonna write a book 10 years from now.
That is a great question, Mayor. And the reason why is because you think you'll remember how you feel right now. You'll be surprised how much you change in a year and 2 years. And journals were important. I would go back, I would find emails, I would find journals. It reminded me of the way I was thinking at a certain point. And like I said, sometimes it's embarrassing when you're like, wow, I was being childish, or I didn't have perspective at that time. But you are documenting your life. And so even if you do 5 minutes every night, it helps you to sort of track your growth. I have something called a gratitude journal. So what I do is before I go to bed, I write down 3 things I'm grateful for that happened during that day. And it sends me into my sleep with a positive mindset. You may be thinking you had a bad day, and when you're forced to think, what good happened today? You're like, oh, actually this did happen, or I talked to this person, or I got this email that was great. And then in the morning, I write 3 things that I'm hopeful for the day. So it's like an affirmation. This is what I hope to happen today. And that gratitude journal, I've had it for years. And that was also important in writing this book.
Natasha, a question. You said your parents didn't support you when you was going to Harvard, and when you got to Harvard, you didn't feel like you belonged. Okay. How did that not discourage you, and how did you go on to be successful?
Thank you for asking that. So Initially, their reaction was a little bit negative. You'll see it in the book. It's the chapter is called Golden Ticket. So that's where you'll see their reaction to me getting in. But eventually they did come around. My dad was asked at work, "Oh, did she get an athletic scholarship?" Think about that, right? People assumed that I had to be an athlete in order to get in as a young, Black Latina girl. So once that happened to him, he got proud. He's like, "No, she got in because of her academics." He became a proud Harvard dad. So that did change. And for my mother, she was worried about student loan debt because when she went to school, she paid on credit cards. She didn't get any scholarship. She didn't have any support. Once she found out that Harvard paid for everything, then she was like, "Okay, you can go." And so for the young people, I encourage you to apply to everything. Let them tell you no. Don't tell yourself no. You'd be surprised how much money is out there for you to get a free education. And that's what happened with me. I almost didn't apply. I almost said my SAT scores they were good. They weren't perfect. I'm like, they probably don't take anyone unless your scores are perfect. But I had one person who said you have to apply. And so I applied and I was blessed because of that faith. And so I want other people to have that faith as well. So sorry, that was the first part of your question, how my parents did come around. And then in terms of my experience there, once I got there, I saw, oh, I was assuming all these people were better than me and smarter than me and more deserving than me. And you see, a lot of people get where they are because of outside help. Okay? A lot of people their parents knew this person or their parents donated this money. And so sometimes we have a sense of inferiority that is unwarranted. You are so deserving. You are so capable. You are so brilliant. But you encounter a society that always makes you feel like you have less than, or because you went to this school or you came from this neighborhood, you're probably disadvantaged compared to this other person. When in reality, your brilliance is just as pure, right? And so it took me going there to realize that people weren't better than me, even if they knew how to maybe better navigate certain systems. Once I realized that, my sense of confidence and belonging changed.
So that's a good segue because don't let nobody tell you you don't belong, okay? Because you can do whatever you want to do, okay? We have Black presidents, we got pilots, okay? We got mayors, okay? We got authors, CNA correspondent people. You can do whatever you want, okay? You just gotta believe in yourself and don't let nobody discourage you. Not even your parents, okay? Nobody. Do what you think is best for you and you'll be successful.
Someone in the hand in the audience, gonna go get a little bit of time.
I've been on this planet a long, long time, and people keep saying, "Girl, when are you gonna write your book?"
Well, you do look like an author. You look fabulous, by the way. I mean, the joy of, there are a lot of downsides to social media in the era that we live in right now, but the joy is that people can self-publish and they can talk to their audience directly. So I would say if you don't have a website, if you don't have Instagram, if you don't have Twitter, you have to get it, right? Because that's how you talk to your people directly. You don't need anybody else to do that for you. And once you put yourself out there and you start to share your story, your people will find you. But they can't find you unless you put yourself out there. Amazon.com, I believe, allows authors to self-publish. So that's one way to do it. For me, I was connected with a book agent. And so she was able to connect me. You know, we sold my book. I got a few offers. One was from HarperCollins. And so I went with HarperCollins. But your time is now. That's really the message. And for the young people, you can publish a book now and publish more books later, right? You can self-publish now and build your audience and then publish with a company later. So I think it's all about just writing. Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
What experience did you have?
Sorry, can you repeat your name, please, and where you're from?
Say, what's the morning?
Okay.
What experience did you have that made you learn that you have a potential?
I believe that my parents did do a good job of affirming me. And in this chapter is called Gifted. I explain how they told me education is the one thing no one can take from you. So always invest in it. And number two, my dad would get me custom made trophies. because he said, even if somebody else doesn't recognize you, I want you to know that, you know, I recognize the good that you're doing in school. So it came from my parents, but I did have teachers who along the way affirmed me and told me, like I said, make sure you apply to this school, make sure you apply to this scholarship. Another thing I did oratory competitions. When I was 14, I did my first official oratory competition. And I had to talk about like the US Constitution. It was for the American Legion. And I was terrified. There was no other young Black girl on that stage talking about the Constitution. But in facing my fear, I was forced to go out there to give a speech. And then I realized, okay, I can talk in front of people. You know, many times our fear it warps reality. It makes us think that certain things are harder than they really are. And once I did that, a whole world opened up for me in terms of possibilities. So I think the real origin is with family, but also in confronting things that seem hard.
But before you speak, I just want to say, if you don't know, there is a New Jersey Orders chapter within the city of Orange. So you may want to talk to the mayor and find out about joining.
Hello, my name is Samuel from Canyon. I'm born in New Jersey, and my question is, when you were writing your book, did that ever take away time that you could spend with your friends? And if so, then did your friends stop talking to you?
That's a good question.
I see where your head is at, Samuel. He's like weighing it out. He's like, well, I think everyone on this panel can confirm that hard things take sacrifices. And so there were a lot of parties I couldn't go to, a lot of barbecues and kickbacks I couldn't go to. And yeah, I kind of disappeared for a couple of years because I was a new mom also. So that's a full-time job. But I surround myself with people who are ambitious. I surround myself with people who know what it takes to do hard things. So they were very gracious. They understood that I was working on the book. And those are the friends that you need in your life. People who you can kind of pick up where you left off. They know your heart, you know theirs. They're good people. And they cheer you on, most importantly. So all the people in my circle, there's no haters in the circle, none of that. Everyone wanted what was best for me. And when I emerged, you know, a few years later, once it was done, all those people were at my book party, you know, cheering me on, saying you did it. And the key is reciprocity. I will do the same for them. I will cheer them on. I have friends in law school. I have friends working on a PhD, their third degree, you know, whatever it is that they're doing in life, we're lifting each other up. So yes, I sacrificed, but it was well worth it.
Yeah, I want to ask you before we get too late. We talked about these big milestones, right? The big schools, the big jobs, but then it wasn't always a straight line. One of the things you talk about a lot is illness and battling illness while you were on your path. Do you want to talk a little bit about that here?
Sure. So you'll read in the book, but I actually have lupus. And if you're familiar with lupus, it's an autoimmune condition. It tends to disproportionately impact women, and particularly Black women and Hispanic women. So it's a hard illness to live with. It can sort of strike at any time. It means that you have to be healthy, you have to get sleep. Sometimes you have to say no. It is when basically your immune system attacks your healthy cells. So the immune system is supposed to attack sick cells and invaders, but instead it gets confused and attacks your healthy cells. So lots of, you know, different pains and things like that you will encounter. But what lupus taught me was to appreciate my body and take nothing for granted. And so often we wake up and we just assume we'll be healthy. We take that for granted, right? When the truth is that can be taken from us at any time. So the most important thing you can do for yourself is to care for your health, even as a young person. And I talk about kind of the stages of grief, being really sad over being diagnosed, but ultimately how I found peace with that. Yeah.
One story to tell. Yeah, you guys have to read the book. But there's a story that's very striking about you maybe not taking as good care of yourself as you should, and then being out on a date where you needed to go to the doctor.
Or even, you know, I was at in Hollywood, and how many of you have heard of the show Insecure? I'm a little older than you guys, so I don't know if you were watching Insecure, but I was like at an HBO taping in Hollywood, and all these great things were happening, and I had to go to the hospital because all of a sudden I had a lupus flare. That's basically when your body starts, attacking itself. And I had to stop everything I was doing, right? To go and to attend to that. And so it just goes to show that you have to invest in your health. Because if you don't take care of your body, right, you're going to be forced to stop everything you're doing and take care of your body.
You have any other questions? Yes. That. Yeah, you like something?
Yes, my name is Latina Turner. I love everything that you said. It really resonated with me. I just recently finished my dissertation or my PhD.
Woo!
And my research was on first generation Black and brown females who come from underserved communities, who attended predominantly white institutions. So a lot of the things that you spoke about was things that I found, right? Having the imposter syndrome. I love what you said that, where you said that you may feel like they're better. They're not better. They may be better prepared. They may be able to navigate better, but they're not better. And what I did was look for the strategies that these students used to be successful, because they were successful. They used strategies that they had gotten from their communities and from their families and from their homes to be successful. But at what cost? They lost a lot throughout their journey. Also heard you say that your parents encouraged you to get an education, but many of these students that I've come across, they have the weight of the world on their shoulders, right? So they're not just going to college to get an education. They're going to college because they have to save their families. They're going to college because they have to purchase homes and pay their parents' bills. So I would say, what would you say to the population of students that are not able to go to college and major in what they want to major in because they have to major in what they have to major in because they feel like they have to make money because they have to go back home because their parents have 6 and 7 children, they have to help feed their family. So what would you say to that population?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're highlighting something that's very real. And I will be honest, I had the luxury of parents who said, you're doing this for you and not for me. So there were moments where I could be selfish in a sense, right? Quitting the job that made all the money to go teach, like that was because I had parents who said, we're fine. My parents are humble people. I tried to offer to buy them things. They're like, we don't want it. But not everybody has that. Some people will gladly be like, yes, we need money for this. We need money for that. So I think because my mom had done that, she had been the eldest child. She had been sending the money back to the house. She said, I don't want that for you. Go do what you want, right? You're free to do that. So I recognize the privilege that I have, and that's why I'm very cautious about giving advice, knowing that I had that privilege. But I would say that it is important to put your oxygen mask on first. And I know that that's hard because culturally, that's not what we teach. We teach that it's about family and you got to bring everybody up. But the truth is you have to stabilize yourself first. You have to stabilize yourself first because you will constantly, it's like a boat that has holes in it. The water is always sort of flowing in. You'll always have somebody who you can give to, right? But what's your path, And so I think that even if it means, disappointing certain people or not being able to show up in that way, it's an investment that you have to make in yourself so that you can actually help people in a legitimate way. That's the difference between wealth and sort of being rich, quote unquote. Like richness is for a season. That money I was making at the hedge fund, that was just me having money for that season. I wasn't wealthy, but if I had only sort of crafted my career around making that money, I wouldn't have actually been stable enough to do anything for my family. Now I have a career because I went and I did what I was supposed to do, which was become a journalist, and I'm on a stable path. So as odd as it may sound, being selfish sometimes is the answer.
Yeah. When you wrote the book, and I'm wrapping up here, but when you wrote the book, I know there's a process to writing. I want you to outline the book, or to give a pitch with a lot of ideas in it. But then you had to actually write the book. What I'm curious to know is, was there anything that you learned in the course of the writing that you didn't already have figured out when you started writing the book?
There's a great writer. His name is Kiese Lehman. He wrote a book called Heavy. I recommend every person in the audience read it. It's called Heavy. It's a memoir. And he talks about the power of revision. Sometimes as a writer, you write something and you don't want to change it, but your book becomes better through revision. So don't be afraid to delete certain passages, to cross certain sentences out, to actually just throw a whole chapter away. And I think that that's a lesson in life. Sometimes we hold on to things for too long because we're afraid that we can't create something better. When actually what you need is to let it go and to continue to evolve and to create. So that's American Negra was about 30,000 words over the limit. So I was forced to cut down. My editor looked, she was like, okay, girl, we're not doing 30 chapters, okay? We're gonna do 15 chapters, so let's cut this down a little bit. But through the revising process, that's how I was able to do that.
Nope.
So, hi.
All right.
My name is Adrian Luke, I'm a councilwoman at large in the city of Lawrence Township. So my question to you is, being a councilwoman, being a political figure, and being a woman, sometimes we face adversary from our male counterparts, not
Thankfully, yes.
here. But as a female author, have you ever faced any opposition from the male counterpart?
So actually, I would say that the intersection of my gender as a woman and my race has been the most illuminating for me. People don't like young women who are overly opinionated. I'll just tell you that right now. When you are a woman, you are expected to be likable, agreeable, subservient. That is sort of how you are expected to be. And so what I actually found was it wasn't in the writing so much. It was when I'm a VP at the GRIO. In certain organizations where I was being a leader, that's when I ran into issues because people are like, who's this young girl? You haven't been here long enough, or we've been here longer than you, that sort of thing. And it actually wasn't just men. A lot of times there were other women who were the obstacle because they had been sort of hazed, so to speak. They had to suffer. And they're like, well, if I went through this, you have to go through this too. Or you have to wait your turn because I'm here. So what I think is we need to change the culture around that in general. We need to be more willing to hear from our young people, people who are maybe have fresh ideas, who haven't been in part of the organization as long as we have. And also from a gender perspective, to accept that not all women have to be nice and likable, but do their ideas have merit? That is the most important conversation that we need to have. So there's a re-education that has to happen on all fronts that I think is important.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And could I just ask Dr. Turner to explain, we hear the word imposter syndrome. Could you explain that to the audience? The students may or may not know what that is. Some of them go like, could you just explain what imposter syndrome is?
Yeah. How many of you have you heard of imposter syndrome? Okay. Dr. Turner?
Dr. Turner?
Using my community.
Oh,
Can you just give us a brief overview of what this imposter syndrome is? Something I just learned about.
Thank you. Imposter syndrome is basically just like intrusive thoughts that come into your head, or like a line of questioning that's coming into your head, or that it's causing you to question your abilities, your accomplishments, who you are. You might start to think that you don't belong, you're not good enough, and you start to sort of panic at times, thinking that maybe other people are going to start to see you for who you are. They're going to start to see that you don't really know what you're talking about. You're not really good enough. You're not really popular. You're not really pretty enough. And what we have to do when those thoughts come into our head is basically use our brain to counteract those thoughts. And we start to look at the proof. What proof do we have that we are not good enough? And that's how you counter those intrusive thoughts of being an imposter. Thank you.
So let's get the kick rock. All right, we are at our time commitment, but I do want to ask you before we go, how can the people in this room be helpful to you with this book as a new author, a Black author, and Latina woman author? How can we help them?
Well, you've been helpful to me just by being in this room, just to start. So thank you. Um, Again, I'm humbled that the mayor and city council are sitting here listening to me. I didn't realize, I thought you were gonna come and go take a picture and go do other work. So, so this is an honor because I know you have work to do. I would ask you to just read the book. I know social media is right there on your phone and it's so easy to scroll, but if you just take 15 minutes a day, you would be surprised how many books you can read. And I think that social media, television, all of that has kind of eaten up our reading time. Did you know there's a survey that just came out that Americans, only 40% of us have read one book in a year? Only 40% of us. So the majority of us don't even read every year. So if you just take one book, 15 minutes a day, even 10 minutes a day, you would be surprised what you can do. And so I would ask you to just read the book to start. And if you love the book, of course, to write a review and share it online, because this is how we let the publishing companies know that people care about Black authors and Black stories.
And that review is on Amazon, on Instagram.
On Amazon.
All right, we're supposed to go, but I see Black Panther here got something to say.
So say if I wanted to write a book, what advice would you give me?
Okay. So the first thing you should do if you want to write a book, you can write an outline. So even if you don't know the title of your book, you say, this is the story, this is the plot. Are you interested in nonfiction or fiction? Nonfiction? Okay, so you write an outline, you say, this is the introduction, this is where I want to end, this is what I want to accomplish in each chapter. And then from there, you go and you do bullet points and you say, okay, these are the 3 topics. These are the 3 points I'm going to make in this chapter, in this chapter. And then you go back and you actually write the chapters. So sometimes just the brainstorming the outline is a great way to start. Of course, good luck with your book.
And I think there's a Miss Harris who's here. Where's Miss Harris? There's Miss Harris. And Miss Harris is with me.
She's with ELA and our high school, but I have designated her as the reading person for the city of Orange Township. Just wanted to say hello to her.
Thank you for being here, Miss Harris. I hope you love the book. I hope this becomes like a read. Amazing. Thank you so much. My dream for this book is actually for it to be taught in schools. That was the dream, because I want young people to see themselves in it and to know what's possible. And I think this is how we do it through storytelling.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sit around for a few minutes.
I will sign books for people. I'll custom sign your book. And I think we're just going to take a few pictures and then we'll go from there.
All right, sounds good. All right, thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Hello. I'll do this very quickly before our author goes to signing books. When you come to town, even though you're living here now, you come to our library presenting to our students and to our residents is something that's important to our city. So I'm tasked with my colleagues on the council to present a proclamation to you as an author, as a person who lives here, who inspires a mom, a college graduate, a person who's in our community to make us read. This proclamation honors you and your work on behalf of the mayor and the city of Orange Township Municipal Council. We thank you and appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Mayor Warren, and we're at the Orange Public Library. And today was a special day where we had author Natasha Alford, who is a resident of Orange. You come to us by way of Harvard, by way of Northwestern, by way of Syracuse, New York, but you're here. You wrote a book called American Negra. And in it, you walk us through a young girl's journey into the upper echelons of media, finance, and so forth. Tell me, you don't always have audiences where we had our students here so they could see full display what this process is all about. Tell me about your reaction to that.
I mean, having the students made this 10 times better, right? Because you're looking at young people and you're saying, that used to be me. And you hear people say you can do anything again and again, but to have someone come back and testify, no, I really was like you. I faced those same things. And look, you can do it. That is why we do this work. That's why I wrote the book. So it was an honor to be here.
You wrote this book, and this, they tell me, is just emblematic of Black and Latina women. You wrote this book, you kept a home, you had a child,
You still worked. You still did everything that we're supposed to do, and you wrote a successful book. Um, Tell us how you managed your time, how you got to this point. You mentioned journaling. Tell us about that process.
So I think it's important that when you have a big dream, you understand everything doesn't have to happen at once. It is a process. Allow yourself grace to take things step by step. And so I took 3 years to write this book, writing a little bit every day when my son was taking a nap, getting up in the morning before he woke up or right after he went to bed. And there were hard times. It was challenging, but I knew the vision that I had. And so I think that we should all allow ourselves that grace, but also it's okay to say no to things, make short-term sacrifices for a season. And so there were, parties I didn't go to or things I didn't get to do when I was really focused in on the book. But now being on the other side, it was all worth it.
I want to add that your son will only be 3
Yeah.
in a few months while you were doing this. Um, Tell me about you came from a solid 2-parent family. Um, you got to Harvard based on rigor and grit. You went there. Tell me the point that you realized that these people are no more intelligent, they're no brighter, they're no more brilliant than I am.
I spent the first year in college afraid to raise my hand. One of those young people who, was a little bit afraid of asking the wrong question. And after about year 2, I started to realize, okay, you have to ask the questions. That is what learning is about. But also, other people have questions too, right? A lot of the people who I sort of assumed knew so much more, I would find them saying the very thing I was thinking that I was too afraid to say in class. And so the message for young people through telling this story is to be courageous. Pursue your education with vigor, with faith, with focus, and not worry about the people who are around you, trying to impress them, worried about what they will say, because really, at the end of the day, it's between you and your education, right? And this is a lifelong journey that goes beyond 4 years, beyond any one degree. We are all on a journey of learning for the rest of our lives. And so you owe it to yourself to do so with full courage and faith.
Owing it to yourself to give it your all at all times is something that resonates throughout your book. Um, this is not the first book. This is going to be one of many. Tell me what projects you're looking into next and how you're preparing today to get to that point.
Well, I did work on a documentary over the past few years that's focused on solitary confinement and the impact of solitary confinement, particularly on Black people who are incarcerated. Solitary confinement is often used as a tool of punishment, and it does a lot of harm. And so that's one of the projects I'm working on. But also, I encourage people to follow me at the Griot. We got a big election coming up. Want to encourage everybody to vote, no matter who you vote for. Make sure that you show up and you're heard. And so that's what I am going to be focused on for the next year, covering that election on the Griot and on CNN.
Very good. You have, although you went to Harvard and Northwestern, you still have some great affinity for the HBCUs, and you understand. I argue in my home, my daughter's at Harvard, and I argue that that was the first HBCU because Black labor built it.
That's right.
But tell me about those students who are at HBCUs and how the intelligent quotient has risen with the rest of society about how great those institutions are.
I think society is finally realizing that HBCUs deserve investment. We're seeing this on a federal level with presidents who are finally giving more money to HBCUs. I mean, there's just so much talent in HBCUs, and they often produce the doctors, right? The scientists, the engineers. I mean, they are on the front lines of really, investing in young people who become the leaders of tomorrow in our communities. It was my dream to go. I ended up going to a different school because of financial reasons, and I think what we need to make sure of is that young people who want to go are given the financial support to go.
There you have it. She wrote a book. Her name is Natasha Alford. It is American Negra, right here in the city of Orange Township. We hope to hear from her on other projects soon. But most importantly for us, she lives here in the city of Orange Township. I'm Mayor Warren. We're at the Orange Public Library. This is the day of American Negra. Natasha Alford wrote a book. It's a woman's journey, really, to the upper echelons of media, of finance, and of being a good citizen. I'm here with some Orange High School students who came in, asked questions, and walked away with some better ambition about their own future. Sir, what's your name?
Samuel Noel.
You want to be what when you grow up?
I'm still trying to figure that out, but I'm thinking of becoming a computer tech.
Oh, nice. Young lady?
My name is Diane.
Diane. What do you want to be, Diane?
I'm still trying to figure it out as well.
Your name?
Lena Neptune.
Lena, what is it from today's session that struck you the most about this woman and her journey?
I think I kind of see myself in her as an adult because I too am like kind of like a Latina myself, and I find it inspiring that like someone like me,
Yes.
someone like a lot of people that I see and grew up around get to have these experiences where she went to Harvard, wrote a book, and is now having these amazing experiences where she's going around New Jersey and showing her book and inspiring younger children and teens.
That's what it's all about, being a young Black woman in today's society. How is it to have an example like Natasha Alford?
It was very inspirational. It made me want to do better as a young Black woman and push myself and know that I could be just as good as everybody else.
That's right. What does this tell you about how well we should be doing in school and our focus in school?
Well, if you really think about it, it goes back to what our parents say. Always do good in school, because if you do good and you stay away from anything that strays you away, such as like smoking, stuff like that, good stuff will actually come to you.
Do well in school, stay on the right path, and good stuff will always come. I am standing amongst our future. I'm standing amongst brilliance. Today was at the Orange Public Library. It was all about America Negra. It was about a journey to success that we're all on right now. I want to talk to Marquise about the book signing today. You met Miss Alford. You have a copy of her book, and you heard some of the story. Tell me about how our journey resonates with you.
It resonates with me because a lot of people today have challenges and they don't really feel comfortable about opening up. And it really it can inspire some people to like open their mind freely and write a book and publish it so people can not feel alone. Like people can read this book and find out like, oh, somebody else is going through the same thing I'm going through. So I think that this is a good book and it sends a good message to all the young people. And I think it would get young people to start reading books more and stop going on Instagram, TikTok, and all that. I think, and it sends a good message to the future generation. So yeah, that's what I think.
Wisdom, sage advice for our young people. Sounds like a man of my own heart. Open up your books, turn off the electronic media, challenge your mind. But the key is that we find company in the experiences of others. It allows us to be free to open up and reach our full potential. I'm here with the potential in Orange. Future mayors, future council people, future professionals, the future. Jamal, you're usually on this side of the mic because you're the professional. Just tell our audience who you are and why you're here.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. So, Mayor, I have spent my entire career in politics. I used to work at the White House for President Biden and Vice President Harris. I'm now at CNN as a political commentator, and we're spending a lot of time this year arguing about the big questions of democracy and what the future of the country is going to be.
That's right. Today we had an author come in. Ms. Alford wrote the book America Negra. You moderated this discussion today. What did you want to pull out of her book that's important, especially for our youth?
You know, as a woman of color who has worked in media, she has worked in finance, she went to Harvard, she's got such an incredible story to tell, but her story didn't happen as a straight line. And I think it's important for our young people to know that when they hit a rub, when something happens that's not on their plan, they can still recover, they can still figure it out, and they can get to whatever height it is they want to go to. None of us have gotten here blemish free. Everybody playing the game has gotten a uniform, you know, that's got some scratches on it.
That's right.
So in order to actually succeed in life, you're going to have to get in the game and work it out. And I think that's what Natasha Alford has done. She wrote a book about some real struggles, some real problems in her life, but also some real triumphs. And it's important for people to know about it.
Before I let you go, it wasn't always that places like CNN and other media conglomerates had people look like you on that side of the mic. We're usually on this side of the mic being criticized. Tell me what it's like now to see that kind of progression, and how are you trying to make sure that the entirety of our story is always told?
This is America, and America always has its own struggles. But what our job is, I think, is to move the ball forward as far as we can while we have it, right? And so, what I look at is one, am I getting my substance right? Are we all getting the substance right? But two, there are young people out there. There are other people who want to see people who look like them in these spaces, and are we making sure that one, we're representing them well, and then two, opening up a space for them to come in after us? Because I won't be doing this forever. That's right. Yeah, I hope not doing it forever. So if we can figure that out, we can make sure there are young people who are going to take it to a place that we can't even imagine.
That's right.
And the one thing I do know whenever I spend time with young people in my life is they have ideas that come from places that I don't even understand. So I have to entrust that their vision is going to work out. And I want them to listen to my experience, but I'm going to listen to their vision. And so I want to make sure we keep that door open.
Quick story, any story you want to relay us about your time in the White House. You were there under Kamala Harris.
I was. Let me just say, I was there when Russia invaded Ukraine. I was there when the Dobbs decision happened in the Supreme Court that took away women's right to reproductive freedom. And one of the things that's important is that this is an administration and this is a country, because it's not just this administration. We have big choices to make. Do we want a country where we all get to participate and where we're going to have individual rights and freedoms and a democracy that protects us, or we're going to have one where there's one individual who's in charge, or it won't have the democratic freedoms that we've all grown up and believed in? Right. And I think we really are facing that choice this time. And if the more we can do right now for everybody to participate, to show up, to register, to get somebody else to register and show up and vote, the more likelihood it will be that we have a country we can be proud of next year, like the one that we have today.
Excellent. Brother Jamal, thank you for all that you're doing. We'll be looking for you on CNN. Appreciate it. I'm Mayor Warren. We're at the Orange Public Library, and this is the end of the book signing for Natasha Alford, who is an Orange resident right here in our library. Please get it, American Negra. It's all about a woman's journey all the way to the tops of media and finance, but also an important message, as you heard from Brother Jamal, getting out to vote. I'm Mayor Warren, and we're at the library. Hi, I'm Mayor Warren. We're at the Orange Public Library. Today was a book signing for the book America Negra by Natasha Alford, who is an Orange resident, grew up in New York, went to school at Harvard, Northwestern, went into finance, went into media, moved to New Jersey with her family, resides in the city of Orange Township, where she continues to write and to educate. And here she was with us today on a panel which included Councilwoman Adrienne Wooten, Councilman Weldon Montague, and Councilman Cliff Ross. Weldon Montague, you saw today a person come to the stage, document their story in a book, and then talk to the public about it. But she also talked about the writing process. What do you think about that?
Well, of course, we're in the perfect place, Orange Public Library. Writing is a virtue. Reading is a virtue. I just like everyone to know I'm a graduate of Park Avenue School, OPA, Orange Middle, Morgan State University. And, reading is definitely a virtue. Thank you, Mayor, for bringing Natasha in, bringing CNN in, Clifford Ross.
Cliff Ross, you were part of this panel today. It was headed by a CNN political analyst, laying out for us what's in the book. But you were also interested in the CNN analyst story that our children can learn from as well.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I was very interested. It was a great event today. Miss Natasha was here, telling her story about how she became a CNN correspondent, a journalist, and a book writer. And it's very important that folks, saw and heard her journey, okay, because she was discouraged on her way to put this book together. And, I wanted students to hear that your dream. Don't give up on your dream, okay? Whatever you want to do, you can do it, okay? You belong wherever you want to belong to, okay? Do whatever you want to do. So, and that's what she brought out to us today. And I wanted the kids to hear that. They heard that. So
just remember, students, follow your dreams, and you could do whatever you want to do. Thank you.
Dream high. Obstacles just propel us to do even more. Students, do not be discouraged. Thank you, Cliff, for that. Councilman Wooten, the author today also talked about journaling. And I know you're a full advocate of journaling and a prolific journaler. Tell me about that writing process and how it's helped, how you resonate with her process in getting to this book.
I think it's definitely a process that you should do. It helps out on so many different levels. I've journaled since I was a kid. It especially helped out with the death of my son. I have a granddaughter who journals every day. So it's something that helps you out in so many levels. You can't even like imagine what it does for the soul. But Mayor, what I would like to say is literacy is alive and well in the city of Orange Township. We just had a magnificent panel on Saturday with the documentary Right to Read, which was an amazing film. I just want to thank you and my council colleagues for always bringing events like this to the city of Orange Township, which tells people like literacy is alive and well in the city of Orange Township. It is. We're all about reading because we know reading makes what? Leaders.
That's right. That's the resounding message. Reading makes leaders. Certainly, we're going to continue this full span on literacy, on writing, and making sure that we get into the written word so we expand our opportunities and our possibilities. Here in Orange, doing it at the library, we're doing it in the schools, we're doing it at City Hall, wherever we can to push this message of literacy. We want to do it. That is the way of our future. I'm Mayor Warren. I am with my council colleagues and with the Orange Public Library on the book America Negra by Natasha Alford. Hi, Shirley Hendricks. We're here today at the Orange Public Library. Normally, you're on this side of the mic. You predate Oprah Winfrey and all of them. You did it better. But today it's a book signing, and it's all about a woman's journey from where she grew up all the way to the tops in media and finance. You had a question that said, hey, people often say, when are you going to write a book?
Absolutely. I have no idea where to begin, but this young lady has inspired me to begin somewhere and do it sooner rather than later. And I've been on this planet for a mighty long time. I have a lot of stories to share. So keep your eyes and ears open. I'm coming your way.
That's all right. Others in the same position who have the wisdom, who have the time on this earth. This was a good session on how to get your ideas down, start to journal, start to do outlines, and then this could wind up in a book, and it's all for our edification to move Orange forward. I'm at the Orange Public Library. I'm Mayor Warren.